Welcome everyone to Samuel Shankland taking on Anish Giri at the Prague Masters 2025. Shankland playing with the white pieces here against Anish promises to be an exciting encounter. They shake hands and off we go. Shankland adjusts all his pieces. Let's see what his first move is going to be. He opens the game with 1 e4. And Anish responds back with the Sicilian. He pushes his pawn to c5. Knight comes out to f3 and d6. Well, we are going to see the Najdorf, which is one of Anish's favorite openings, and today he's coming in for a fight, especially after his loss to Arvind Chidambaram. He plays this, the open Sicilian. Knight takes d4, knight to f6, and now the knight comes out to c3. Well, black brings his knight out to c6. Bishop to g5. Wow. So we do not have firstly the Najdorf played. We have the Sicilian classical, and in that bishop g5 played here by Shankland, e6 by Anish. Anish going for the Sicilian classical. That's a bit of a surprise there, but I believe he wants to surprise Shankland. In fact, Shankland has made a course on this opening with the black pieces, so he would be well prepared here. And Anish plays his pawn to a6. Takes on c6. Very interesting choice here by Shankland. This move is actually very double-edged, because on one hand you're giving black a very strong center, on the other hand you are quickly developing. So now with castles you have pressure down the d file, you have threats of e5 in the air. So bishop comes out to e7 and he presses the clock. And let's see what Shankland now comes up with. g4 looks like an idea, just hurling the pawns down the board. h4 as well. He goes f4. But f4 is slightly risky, because now after d5, I mean, it begs to question, and Anish very quickly plays it. If you play e5, I have knight d7, bishop takes, queen takes, and black is doing fine. So he goes queen e1. Not the best move in the position, but very logical. Opening up the rook against the queen and setting up ideas down the d file. Rook b8 played here, attacking the b2 pawn. And so he takes, pawn takes pawn. Takes back, pawn takes pawn. And here you play the bishop to c4. So with this move, you are just essentially putting the bishop back to b3, because the b file is open and it's very dangerous. Black simply castles it out. And this looks like an amazing position for black, because you have the open b file, you have this idea of bishop d7, a5, a4. But one thing that should not be underestimated are white's chances here. a5 played by Anish. He's going for it. White has chances connected with the f5 breakthrough. So goes king b1. And now Anish goes bishop d7. Yes, he plays his bishop to d7 here, and he has ideas of pushing a4 somewhere. So Sam plays a4, and maybe it was not needed, because the a4 pawn was not coming in yet, but he pushes it, and Anish very happily moves his rook in. So maybe his next move could be to put even more pressure on the a4 pawn, But f5 played. What a move. So if you take here ef5, I have bishop takes and knight takes d5 with a winning position to white. So you can't take the pawn on f5. And Anish plays his queen to b6. The position is heating up now. Pawn takes pawn taken. If you take with the bishop, I'll be taking on f6 and then taking on d5. So that should be fine for white. So he takes back with the pawn. And there is some problems here for black. The e pawn is weak. The e7 bishop is slightly hanging. Rook f1 looks very logical now. But Shankland makes an error. He goes rook takes d5, which is a huge mistake. From an equal position, he lands up in a tough one here. I think his main point is that after takes, he wanted to take on e7. But what does he have up his sleeve to knight takes d5? Absolutely, knight takes d5. And you're a rook down. So if you take here, knight e7 is a complete rook down. Of course, he had in his mind knight takes d5, Anish takes back. And now you can collect back the material because bishop e7 or queen e7. Let's see what he chooses. And you can see that Shankland now is in big trouble because as he starts to calculate, he takes on e7. Now, the threat is bishop d5. So, the best move is to take the bishop on b3, which is what Anish does. He gives back the exchange. Rook takes b3, threatening rook takes b2. So, Shankland takes back. And now, a check. Bishop f5 check, a great move, because if you play king a2, there is this very beautiful move bishop c2 attacking here, and if the queen tries to defend it, then I simply rush my d pawn down the board. So he goes king a1, and now Anish simply takes the pawn on b3, and he's completely better. So Samuel Shankland from an equal position has landed in almost a lost position because of this rook takes d5 move. Queen comes back to a3 and he plays queen c2. It's important to go rook c1 to remove the queen away from the a4 pawn. Plays bishop e3. He takes queen takes g2, attacking the rook, attacking the pawn, and Shankland goes rook g1 with some pressure down g7, and if he can get bishop d4 and queen e7, it could be some problems for Anish. But Anish finds a very good move, queen e4. With this, he keeps an eye on the b1 square, on the a4 pawn, on the e3 bishop. So a very multi-purpose move there. Bishop goes to b6, attacking the pawn on a5. And because of the opposite colored bishops here, the position is a bit sharp. You can imagine it being very drawish if the queens and the rooks come off the board. But till they are on the board, the side which has the attacking chances generally is better. Rook c8 is a good move here, but Anish finds rook f4, which is very good as well. He's attacking the pawn on a4. So bishop comes back to d2, attacking the rook. And now rook to g4. And of course the key point being rook takes rook is met with checkmate. So you can't take it. He goes rook f1, which is I think not the best move. Although he's threatening mate in 1 here, this can be parried by a simple h pawn moving forward. And Anish thinks for a bit and finds h5. The best move in the position there by Anish Giri. Pushes his pawn to h5, pawn to h3, questioning the rook. And now the rook comes to g2, attacking the bishop here. The bishop goes to a5, safe s square there. And a very nice move, king h7. Prophylaxis against some checks or something that can come in. Very mature play. Queen b4 offering a queen trade. I think the last thing that you want is to trade queens, after which the position is drawn. So Anish avoids it. Thing about Anish is that in such positions he is very, very strong. He make the logical moves, attacking the rook. The rook comes to c1. And it's time to be a little bit more greedy and chop off the pawn on h3. Queen b5, attacking the pawn here on d5. Pawn pushes forward, d4. A queen to d5. And now maybe we can even go further ahead with d3. Doesn't feel like a bad move. But Anish plays queen e3, attacking the rook. He goes rook to d1. And now the d pawn is hanging, so he plays queen e2, attacking the rook and the b2 pawn. Queen takes d4 is what Shankland had on his mind, but now rook g4 ends the game because you attack a4 and attack d1. Finds rook g4, queen d7, and a simple move now, queen to c2. Yeah, queen c2 played, and now rook takes a4 could come in, and everything is kind of hanging. Anish Giri wins his first win at the Prague Masters 2025, and he moves to 50% score once again. A very interesting game, but Sam Shankland's rook d5 was clearly a huge mistake.